Here's a story of a voice, a style, and a spirit that changed music.
Stand back. In the middle of my room, I did not hear from you.
It's a tale woven from chiffon, lyricism, and raw, unyielding strength. This is the journey of Stevie Nicks, a woman who wrote her life into her songs and invited the world to listen. A life marked by extraordinary creativity, profound love, and intense personal battles. Stevie Nicks was born in Phoenix, Arizona, on the 26th of May 1948. From the very beginning, music was a constant presence in her life. Her grandfather, Aaron Jess Nicks, was a struggling country and western singer who dreamed of making it big. He saw a spark in his granddaughter and took her under his wing, teaching her to sing harmonies before she could even properly read. He filled her head with songs and stories of the stage, planted a seed of ambition that would define her life. Stevie once recalled the early lessons. "My grandfather was a country singer, and he was not famous. He was a dreamer. He had a beautiful voice. He taught me how to sing when I was 4. He would have me stand up on the bar, and he had a guitar, and I would sing with him. He taught me all the harmony parts. He taught me how to sing the low harmony, the high harmony, everything. So I was really a singer before I was anything else." This music education was nomadic. Her father's career as a business executive meant the family moved frequently from Phoenix to Albuquerque, then El Paso, Salt Lake City, and eventually to the suburbs of Los Angeles. The constant state of being this new girl fostered a rich inner world. She retreated into books, poetry, and fairy tales, creating the foundations of the mystical, narrative quality that would later become her signature.
You really see this later on in her writing, whether she's talking about Sarah or she's talking about Gypsy or these different kind of female characters she has. It definitely pulls from those early experiences.
On her 16th birthday, her parents gave her a Goya guitar. It was a simple, classical model, but for Stevie, it was everything.
After my family had been transferred to Salt Lake City for the 8th and the 9th grade, and then to Arcadia, California, right across the street from the Santa Anita racetrack, pretty ritzy in comparison to Salt Lake, something brilliant happened. I took a month's worth of classical guitar lessons, and my teacher decided he wanted to go to Spain, so he sold his Goya classical guitar to my parents for a plane ticket to Spain.
She immediately began to write. Her first song was called "I've Loved and I've Lost, and I'm Sad but Not Blue." The title itself was a premonition of the themes that would dominate her work: love, heartbreak, and a particular form of resistant melancholy. She was creating her own world, one song at a time. I went into my room, and I sat on my bed, and I wrote a song, and I knew that this was it. This was what I was going to do. The Nicks family's final move during Stevie's school years was to Arcadia, a suburb of Los Angeles. In 1966, whilst attending a party, she saw a boy with an intense gaze playing California Dreamin' on his guitar. It was Lindsey Buckingham. She walked over and, knowing the harmony parts by heart, simply joined in. The connection was immediate and undeniable. Lindsey remembered the moment clearly. "We were at a party and I was sitting there playing my guitar and singing. And I looked up and there was this girl, and she just started singing harmony with me. And it was a voice that was it was a perfect blend. There was something that just clicked right away." Despite the instant music chemistry, their story didn't begin straight away. They were both involved in other things, but fate, or perhaps simple proximity, brought them back together. Lindsey was in a band called Fritz, a local group with a growing reputation. They needed a new singer, and he remembered the girl with the captivating voice. Stevie joined the band in 1968.
I think our drummer said, "Well, why don't we ask Stevie if she wants to join the band?" And so we did, and she did join. That band played around the Bay Area.
Fritz became a significant local act, opening for huge names like Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, and Creedence Clearwater Revival.
At some point, we got some opening spots for some larger acts, Janis Joplin and a few other people.
And Stevie and Lindsey, together with their band Fritz, started their career during San Francisco's Summer of Love, opening for the iconic acts of the time, including Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, and the Jefferson Airplane.
For Stevie, it was an education in performance, in holding a stage and connecting with an audience. But it was also a source of frustration. She was the focal point, the girl singer, yet she had little creative input. The songs were written by Lindsay and another band member. Her own compositions, the ones she was writing constantly in her notebooks, were largely ignored. She said of this time, "In that band, I was not a songwriter. I was just the girl. I wrote, but I didn't give my songs to them, because they wouldn't have done them anyway. I was just there to be the pretty girl singer and to sing harmonies and to be, you know, the chick in the band. And I didn't like it. I wanted to be a songwriter." The experience solidified her determination. She knew she had more to offer than just a voice and a face. Fritz disbanded in 1972. With little to show for their years of effort, Stevie and Lindsay took a final leap of faith and, bound by their ambition and a deep, complicated love, moved to Los Angeles to pursue their musical dream as a duo. This period was one of financial hardship but immense creative fertility.
When Fritz broke up, Stevie and I were looking at each other going, well, what now? And we thought, well, we could try doing a duet.
They secured a record deal with Polydor Records and in 1973 released the album Buckingham Knicks.
Jump fast, you're the winner. Long distance winner.
The album was a showcase for their unique blend of talents. Lindsay's intricate, technically brilliant guitar work was the perfect frame for Stevie's raw, emotional vocals and her poetic, folk-infused songwriting. Songs like Crying in the Night and the epic Frozen Love demonstrated a music maturity far beyond their years. The album cover itself became iconic, a black and white photograph of a young, beautiful and completely naked couple. Stevie later expressed reservations about the shoot, feeling she had been talked into it, a feeling that would resurface throughout her career as she navigated a male-dominated industry. Despite its artistic merit, Buckingham Knicks failed to make a commercial impact. The label dropped them soon after its release, leaving them devastated and broke. Stevie took on jobs as a waitress and a cleaner to support them. It was a humbling and difficult time, testing their resolve and their relationship. She spoke of that period with a mixture of fondness and pain. "We were poor. We were so poor. I mean, we had no money. We were living on the floor of a friend's apartment, and I was cleaning houses and waitressing. And he was... well, he wasn't doing much of anything except playing the guitar. And I would come home, and I would be exhausted. And I would say, 'Lindsay, you know, I think maybe I should go back to school.' And he would say, 'Don't you dare. We're so close, I can feel it.' He was right. Unbeknownst to them, their album had found its way into the hands of someone who could change their lives forever. In a recording studio in Van Nuys, a British drummer was listening to Frozen Love, and he was impressed.
That album holds up pretty well. It did not do well commercially, but it certainly was noticed.
In late 1974, Mick Fleetwood was in a state of professional crisis. The guitarist for his band, Fleetwood Mac, had just quit in the middle of a tour, and the band's future was uncertain. He was visiting Sound City Studios, scouting for a new recording location. The studio engineer, hoping to showcase the studio's quality, played him a track. That track was Frozen Love by Buckingham Knicks. Mick was captivated, not by the vocals, but by the guitar playing. "I was listening to the guitar," he explained. "I thought, my God, this is amazing. I didn't even know who it was. I just heard this incredible guitar solo. I asked the engineer, 'Who is that?' And he said, 'That's a guy named Lindsay Buckingham.'" Mick decided to offer Lindsay the vacant guitar slot in Fleetwood Mac. He met with him at a local restaurant. Lindsay, the ever-loyal partner, laid down a condition. I said, "Well, you have to take my girlfriend too," I told him. "We're a package deal, Stevie and I. We come as one." For Mick, and for the band's bassist John McVie, this was unexpected. Fleetwood Mac already had a female member, but she was the keyboardist and vocalist, not the creative partner of the lead guitarist. They agreed to meet Stevie. The meeting took place over dinner. Stevie, ever the enchantress, won them over.
It was Mick's instigation that brought Stevie and me into the group to begin with. Stevie and I were in the back room out at Sound City, which is a studio out in San Fernando Valley, and he heard a song from the solo record we'd done, and very intuitively asked us to join without any audition or anything. And he's always been a master of intuition and overseeing.
Christine McVie, the band's keyboardist and singer, was the final gatekeeper. If the two women didn't get along, it wouldn't work. Christine later said they became allies instantly, recognizing the strength they had together in a male-dominated world.
Mo, cut this. 21 today.
21 today.
I've got the key of the door. Never been 21 before.
21 before.
As Stevie recalled their connection, we realized we could be a force together, that we could be allies in this totally male-dominated world, and we became like sisters. Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham officially joined Fleetwood Mac on New Year's Eve, 1974. The classic lineup was born. For Stevie, it was the culmination of everything she had worked for. It was like a dream. It was like, one day I'm a waitress, and the next day I'm in Fleetwood Mac. It was that quick. The new lineup immediately went into the studio. The result was the 1975 album Fleetwood Mac, often referred to as the White Album. The fusion of the existing British blues rock rhythm section of Mick Fleetwood and John McVie, the melodic pop sensibilities of Christine McVie, and the Californian folk rock artistry of Buckingham and Nicks created a sound that was entirely new and instantly appealing. The album was a phenomenal success, slowly climbing the charts until it reached number 1 in the United States a year after its release. It sold millions of copies and transformed Fleetwood Mac from a respected band into superstars.
How do you feel that your addition to the band has changed what they were doing, and how has it changed what you were doing?
Oh, it changed what I was doing a lot.
Stevie Nicks was at the heart of this transformation. 2 of her songs on the album became defining tracks. The first was Landslide, a deeply personal ballad written a few years after she had contemplated her future. The second song was Rhiannon, based on a character from a novel by Mary Leader titled Triad. Stevie conjured a powerful, mystical figure. At the time, she hadn't realised that Rhiannon was also a character from ancient Welsh mythology. For Stevie, it was simply a name that sounded beautiful and magical. The song was haunting, but it was her live performance of it that truly captivated the world. On stage, she would transform, becoming a magnetic figure, mysterious, theatrical, and entirely her own creation. The performance became so intense that it began to frighten her. For a long time, it was very, very intense. I was Rhiannon. I would go on stage and I would just lose myself in the song. It was like a possession. It was really scary for me sometimes. I thought, I'm going to have to be careful with this one, or I'm going to end up in a mental institution. Rhiannon made her a star, but it also created a persona that would follow her for the rest of her life. Following the staggering success of the White Album, Fleetwood Mac reconvened in Sausalito, California in early 1976 to record the follow-up. The atmosphere was charged with tension. The 2 couples in the band were breaking up. Christine and John McVie were divorcing, and Stevie and Lindsey's long, tumultuous relationship had finally imploded. Mick Fleetwood was also going through his own divorce.
By the time we got up to Sausalito to start recording Rumours, Stevie and I, although not quite as well defined, were estranged, we're not living together, we'd, for all intents and purposes, broken up. John and Christine McVie were divorced.
The studio became a crucible of raw emotion. The band members poured their anger, pain, and heartbreak directly into the music. They wrote songs about each other, creating a musical soap opera that was as compelling as it was painful. Stevie described the atmosphere. We were all in a very bad way. Everybody was broken-hearted. We were all writing about each other. It was a crazy, crazy time.
So Stevie was writing songs, basically dialogues to me. I was basically writing dialogues to her. And Christine McVie was writing dialogues to John.
From this emotional wreckage came the album Rumours, released in February 1977. It became one of the biggest selling albums of all time.
Rumours LP that band really hit big. The album held the #1 position for 31 weeks.
Lindsay's Go Your Own Way was a bitter farewell to Stevie.
You can go your own way. Go your own way.
I'm resigned to whatever happens, but you know, it's a damn shame. It's not what I want.
Stevie's response was Dreams.
And what you had, what you know.
She composed it in minutes, a simple, elegant song of wistful acceptance. It became Fleetwood Mac's only #1 single in the United States. Her other major contribution, Gold Dust Woman, was a stark and harrowing look at the excess and addiction beginning to permeate their lives.
See your sunrise and lights go down. You don't wanna see.
The title itself evoked a powerful image, but the song was about the dark side of fame and the cocaine fueling the band's creativity and their destruction. The final, crazed vocal take on the album captures a woman on the edge. It was a chilling prophecy of the struggles to come. After the colossal world tour for Tusk, their sprawling and experimental follow-up to Rumours released in 1979, Stevie felt a growing need to step outside the confines of Fleetwood Mac. She had a backlog of songs, dozens of them, that didn't fit the band's dynamic.
I did it because I needed another outlet. I have way too much material to be in a band with 5 people, 3 of which write.
In 1981, she launched her solo career with the album Belladonna.
Outside the rain and the hearts kiss their beat.
I wanted to do my own record because I had a lot of songs that I knew would never be on a Fleetwood Mac record, she said. They were my little gothic romance stories, and I wanted to see if I was brave enough. The album was an instant, massive success, rocketing to #1 on the Billboard charts. It featured a fiery duet with Tom Petty, Stop Dragging My Heart Around, and the tender ballad with Don Henley, Leather and Lace.
Walked into my house that you wouldn't be walking out no doors.
But the album's defining moment was Edge of 17, a thundering, urgent rock anthem. Its mood was forged in grief, inspired by the deaths of her beloved uncle and John Lennon in the same week of December, 1980.
It's like the white winged dove sings the song, sounds like she's singing. No, baby.
Its peculiar title came from a mishearing of a comment from Tom Petty's wife, Jane, who had an accent. Stevie fused these poetic ideas with her raw pain, creating a song of loss, resilience, and pure rock energy. It became her personal anthem.
I know in my heart that there's never going to be another situation like Fleetwood Mac. And to try to find another situation would be like looking for love, and you don't find it.
Throughout the 1980s, Stevie successfully juggled her solo career with her commitments to Fleetwood Mac. She released further hit solo albums, including The Wild Heart in 1983 and Rock a Little in 1985. She became one of the most recognizable artists of the decade. Her mystical image, however, led to persistent and bizarre rumors that she was involved in witchcraft. She had become a symbol, not just a singer, a character others projected onto, often misunderstanding her intent. For Stevie, it was deeply troubling. It got very serious. People were saying that I was a witch, that I was evil, and it was all because I wore black and liked lace, and I wrote about mystical things. I was a storyteller, and it really hurt my feelings. To counter the rumors, she made a conscious decision to stop wearing black for several years. The pressure of fame took a heavy toll. By the mid-1980s, Stevie had developed a severe addiction to cocaine. A doctor warned her she was risking brain hemorrhage. The warning was a terrifying wake-up call. In 1986, she checked herself into the Betty Ford Center. "I knew I had to stop," she said. "I knew that if I didn't, I would die." However, her struggles were not over. Worried she might relapse, a psychiatrist prescribed her a tranquilizer called Klonopin. The medication created a new and arguably more insidious dependency. For 8 years, she lived in a fog, her creativity blunted, her personality muted. She described this period as a living nightmare. Klonopin was worse than the cocaine. It was a hole. I was a zombie. I couldn't write. I was gone. It was a blank, black, empty space. Finally, in 1993, she checked herself into a hospital for a painful 47-day detox. The withdrawal was brutal, but she emerged from it reborn. She had lost 80 years of her life, but she had won the battle for her soul. Coming off Klonopin allowed her to write songs again. It was a second chance, and she was determined not to waste it. The latter part of Stevie Nicks' career has been marked by a remarkable and sustained resurgence. She has released acclaimed solo albums, including Trouble in Shangri-La in 2001 and In Your Dreams in 2011. She has also participated in several hugely successful reunion tours with Fleetwood Mac. Her influence is more apparent than ever. A diverse range of artists, from Taylor Swift and Harry Styles to Florence Welch and Lorde, have cited her as a major inspiration. She has become a revered elder stateswoman of rock. In 2019, she received a singular honor. Having already been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1998 as a member of Fleetwood Mac, she was introduced for a second time as a solo artist. She was the first woman in history to receive this double recognition. In her acceptance speech, she spoke directly to the women in music. "So what I am doing is opening a door for other women," she declared. "This is a hard thing to do, but I want you to know that you can do it. You just have to be yourself, and you have to be brave, and you have to write your own songs." In that moment, Stevie Nicks wasn't just accepting a trophy, she was redefining what longevity and leadership looked like in rock music.